An unprecedented escalation of conflicts between Israel and Palestine has been unfolding recently, marking the most significant Palestinian offensive directed at Israel in several decades. In today's content, we will set aside the historical roots of this dispute. We will focus our attention on why such large-scale attacks had not been directed at Israel previously, as well as explore the current unfolding of events and potential future scenarios that may emerge. For a proper understanding of this conflict, it is vital to recognize that Palestine is fragmented into two main territories, the West Bank and Gaza. The West Bank is administered by the Palestinian National Authority, a Palestinian-oriented political entity. Meanwhile, Gaza is under the control of Hamas, a Palestinian group that identifies itself as nationalist, jihadist, and Islamic. Hamas maintains both a political and a military wing, and is recognized by several nations as an entity associated with terrorist activities. The recent Palestinian assault on Israel was linked to the Ezzedine al-Qassam brigades, which act as the militarized segment of Hamas. However, in the offensive, known as Operation Al-Aqsa Storm, other Palestinian organizations such as Islamic Jihad also played an active role. To understand the genesis of this Ramadan offensive against Israel, we have the option to go back in time, as alluded to earlier, and delve into the historical causes in another available video. However, a key element of this occasion was the announcement of an agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia. This agreement contained the promise of both nations normalizing their relations, also encouraging other Arab nations to follow the same path regarding Israel. The mentioned news acted as a catalyst, inflaming tensions that had been escalating throughout the year, a period marked by intermittent rocket launches by Palestinians, Israeli airstrikes, disturbances in Jerusalem involving Israeli police and Palestinians, as well as attacks and incidents in settlements on both sides. The agreement, mediated by the United States and signed between Israel and Saudi Arabia, dealt a harsh blow to the Palestinians, who feel that their struggle is gradually being pushed into obscurity. They increasingly perceive themselves as isolated, while other Arab countries draw closer and establish relations with Israel. Supposedly, Hamas would avoid sabotaging this agreement as it would trigger an extreme situation, exacerbating violence in the region. This scenario could push other Arab nations to distance themselves from the Israel-Palestine conflict. The offensive launched by Hamas was not a spontaneous attack, but a meticulously planned action involving the coordination of resources, the launching of thousands of rockets towards Israeli cities, and the mobilization of a significant number of Palestinian troops. The operation in question was not hastily orchestrated. It required months of meticulous planning. It's notable that Israeli intelligence services, including the Mossad, were caught off guard by a Palestinian offensive of such magnitude. The timing of the attack was not arbitrarily determined, but rather aligned with Saturday and the conclusion of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. This synchrony resulted in a situation where Israeli security forces were underprepared compared to the norm, with a reduction in personnel and available police. Furthermore, the attack was timed to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. The ground incursion was preceded by the launch of thousands of rockets, with Israeli reports citing approximately 2,500 rockets, while Palestinian sources claimed the launch of over 5,000 overnight. On October 7th, air raid sirens echoed in several cities. Following the airstrikes, Hamas members launched attacks on posts located in Israeli border areas along the Gaza-Israel boundary. These attacks occurred in various Israeli locations, targeting both military and civilian targets. Additionally, Palestinians also attempted to free prisoners from the Israeli prison in Ascalon. The exact death toll is still being investigated by the Palestinians, who temporarily took control of various points in Israeli territory and held dozens of civilians and military personnel as hostages. Among the victims, the death of the president of the Regional Council of Southern Israel stands out. To carry out the attack, Palestinian forces employed a range of resources, including trucks, motorcycles, inflatable boats, drones, and light weaponry. Reports of Israeli casualties from helicopters have emerged, indicating that Hamas forces possessed some anti-aircraft capability during the assault. Additionally, Israel suffered losses of several Merkava 4 tanks and a number of armored troop transport vehicles. Now the pressing question is, how will Israel respond to this event? Indications suggest that the response may be unparalleled, marked by extraordinary violence. Sadly, it appears that we are on the brink of a significant event. The most disheartening aspect is that Israel finds itself in a position where the only option seems to be to respond with extreme force. This nation, with just over 9 million inhabitants, is deeply entrenched in this conflict and entirely surrounded by adversarial nations, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. Over the past decades, all these predominantly Islamic countries have represented a continuous threat to Israel. Given this scenario, Israel does not have the luxury of displaying any sign of vulnerability and is thus pressured to maintain a posture of deterrence, expressing itself through an incredibly vigorous response. If Israel does not respond decisively and communicate to the Palestinians and neighboring nations that an attack on its territory will have serious consequences, other adversaries of Israel may become emboldened, an undesirable scenario for the Israelis. Currently, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been warning the population that Israel is facing a critical juncture. Operation Iron Sword has already commenced, involving a series of airstrikes by the Israeli Air Force in the Gaza Strip. This operation will be followed by a ground offensive against Hamas positions within the Gaza Strip. Additionally, Israel is mobilizing its reserve troops in anticipation of this kind of contingency. The country has devised a system that allows the mobilization of the majority of its reservists in just a few days. Israel's challenges are not confined to the Gaza Strip. To the north, Hezbollah, a Shiite militia aligned with Iran, and albeit allied with Hamas, also threatens to carry out military actions against Israel. This may imply that Israel has to defend itself or take offensive action on two simultaneous fronts, significantly complicating the scenario. The keys to the evolution of this conflict lie in the potential intervention of Hezbollah. If they decide to participate, the situation changes considerably. If not, they may choose to remain as a latent threat. Another vital dimension is the international response. In the West, there has been a cohesive response condemning the attack, with leaders including President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and other Europeans expressing condemnation of the episode. The United States has expressed unequivocal support for Israel, pledging assistance for national security and threatening retaliation against any support for Hamas. Meanwhile, Egypt and Saudi Arabia, who played roles as mediators, have restricted themselves to calling for peace without issuing explicit condemnations. Qatar, a notorious supporter of the Palestinians, attributed the responsibility for the escalation of violence to Israel. These global reactions outline the sensitive scenario in which this situation unfolds and the pressures weighing on the participants. Russia has called for peace, but also pressured Israel to return to the 1967 borders and endorse the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. In contrast, Iran praised Palestinian militants and pledged its support, providing weapons and rockets that presumably were used in the attack on Israel. In summary, given the extraordinary violence of the Palestinian attack on Israel, war appears to be an inevitable outcome. A strong response from Israel seems like an inevitable outcome, and both governments have called on their civilians to join the fight. A defeat for either party could trigger a retreat with uncertain consequences, including human losses already numbering in the hundreds. Uncertainty surrounds the actions of Hezbollah to the north, and whether Hamas will seize the turmoil to initiate an attack from the south. Lebanon also finds itself in a dilemma regarding Palestinian initiatives in the West Bank. Currently, predicting a conclusion to the situation is a challenging task, but one aspect is clear. As of the time of this recording, the fate of Gaza as an independent territory appears uncertain. If you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and rest assured that I will continue to update you with information. Until next time.